And welcome into Another Dooley Noted Podcast. We appreciate everybody for watching or listening. Of course, you can watch us on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're watching us now, you're going, yeah, dummy, I already knew that. That's why I'm watching you. Also, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, WRUF.com, all these different 39 platforms you can find this podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. I want to start out by wishing a happy birthday to my brother Timothy, Timmy, whatever he wants to go by these days. But no, his name's Tim. Well, he was Timmy when he was a kid. So I know Dad sings to you on your birthday, so I'm not going to sing. But he is a big part of my life and a big part of our golf tournament and a big part of who I am. And he's going to actually come over this weekend, and we're going to play a little golf together. How about that? So there. But happy birthday, Tim. Happy 39th. I know you've had a couple of those, so I got a great show for you today. Andy Staples is going to join us from The Athletic, good friend of mine, former Florida player as well, and does a great job, one of the best in the business, really, in my mind. And Tom Hart from ESPN and the SEC Network, love Tom's work, and Tom is a great guy. He did the Friday night game for Florida opening its ballpark. He's done almost everything, and I think everything from home, because that's the way it is. So we'll have them on. Of course, all the usual suspects, the Adams Rib Company, Gators of the weekend. We have two again because I've got a special reason for having two this week. Also, of course, the Leonardo's Millhopper quick picks. We start again. We had a winner. We're going to send him his package. I got to actually go by Tuesday, which will be tomorrow, and pick up some of the stuff. I got all the other stuff ready to go. We'll mail it off to him. And it's so funny because we have not had a local winner yet. Everybody wonders how much, this show is watched by people in Gainesville, and it is. It's got tons of viewers here and tons of listeners, but they're all over. We've had winners now, I think, in Destin and South Florida. So far, so that's good. That's kind of a good thing as well. And I do have a question of the day, which I'm going to throw out there. I don't know if it's going to be a new segment or not. Remember, I told you starting in March, we're going to do the Dooley's Football Fix. We'll see if we can get a sponsor for that. We still need a sponsor for three things, although today's will be presented by the Gainesville Quarterback Club. But we were trying to get a permanent sponsor. If you want to get involved, all you got to do is call me, 352-317-3444, my number to call. Looking forward to having Andy on in just a minute. But let's lead with the things that happened over the weekend. There was a ton going on here. Certainly basketball with a win that they needed very much. We all know that. You can't lose to Georgia and have that precipitous drop in your net rankings and everything. And they didn't play great. They started off bad. I actually listened to the game driving home from my dad's house in St. Augustine. And after a while, I kind of went, let me turn over to baseball, which was even worse. But it was funny because Florida was trying to blow leads in both sports. They succeeded in one of them, but not in basketball, and that was a good win. Look, at this point in the year, every win's a good win. And they played well enough. They had that run there at the end of the first half, early second, where they looked like the team we like to see. But 2 games now, 36 turnovers is not good. And look, I still don't think this team has a true point guard. They have point guards, and they struggle, though, handling the ball. They struggle not turning it over. They get ahead of themselves. Sometimes they want to play quick, and sometimes they play too quick, and they have turnovers. But they got the win, and they're right where they were in the net rankings at number 30. They're in great shape to go to the tournament. And I think the key, obviously, is these next 2 road games, which aren't going to be easy, at Auburn, at Kentucky. We know those aren't going to be easy. And then the home game against Missouri. If you can take 2 out of those 3, man, the SEC tournament's just for seeding, maybe to move up a spot. But I don't know how much you move up or get in. I think you can get in or get out at the SEC tournament. I think they go in there and they go, oh, you're a 7. And you get to the final, you go, you're 6.5. We'll move you up to the 6 line. So we'll see what happens there. Now, on the other hand, the bad news was baseball, which is stunning for, I think, a lot of us. That baseball played so poorly, pitched so poorly. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what, like Sully has no idea what happened. What happened? I mean, he couldn't figure it out. He's trying to figure it out now. And I know we're going to talk about that a lot on the tailgate today on the radio. But, I keep caution people. They played their 3rd game of the year. It wasn't pretty. They almost rallied to win, but a lot of pitchers didn't get the job done. So we had all that going on. Of course, gymnastics, without their head coach and their best gymnast, who could be in the Olympics, still found a way to beat Kentucky. That was certainly good for them. And interesting weekend. And they're going to be interesting here for a long time because with basketball, we got spring football going on. Nothing real exciting out of spring football, but at least they're showing us practices on the Zoom, which is I appreciate. And so a lot going on, and we'll get to all of it eventually. First of all, we need to bring in our guest. Always love talking to him. My good friend Andy Staples from Athletic does a great job. That's a pretty good background you got there. That Staples jersey, man, I like that.
Yeah. I only had to get mauled by future NFL draft picks for a time to get one. So, no, it was the shelf got put up this weekend, and now we're busy populating it. We got a few ideas. There's a few things coming in. There's a piece of artwork that I've been waiting for that was actually a license plate that my grandmother had on the front of her car that my wife went and found that is going to be here soon. That'll really tie it all together.
I thought you were going to say it was a piece of artwork from James Bates, because I don't think you can afford that.
I can't afford any Batesies anymore. maybe early period Batesy I could have afforded, but not anymore.
Yeah, we should have gotten him early. In fact, I did get he did the Heisman for my wife for Christmas a couple years ago, and put on the T-ball eye black says Pat Dooley on it. So that was pretty cool. But
I had a Jim McElwain T-shirt. That was the best I got.
I like your Baby Yoda up there. We're knee deep in the Mandalorian right now. So,
well, Grogu is he's got a name, right? Have you gotten to that part yet?
No.
Hopefully, I didn't just spoil that for you.
You did. You ruined it. Let me ask you. This is the important question. During this pandemic, have you become a better cook or the same cook?
I think I've gotten better. I've added a few things. I had a real big dirty rice phase for about a month or so last year where I was making it like every other day, because it was one of those things. I was talking to our LSU beat writer at the Athletic, Brody Miller, and I don't know how we got on the subject of dirty rice, but it's such a common side in Louisiana, and it's one of those that everywhere else you never really even think about it. And I'm like, you know what? I love dirty rice. It's freaking great. How do I make it? And I called a guy named Zach Rao, who is just a master tailgater LSU grad, and he gave me a recipe, and it was about as good as you could imagine. And so I just kept making it over and over and over. And now I've been commanded to bring it to every family gathering. And then we did one the other day. My wife and I spent one Saturday just on the couch watching The Final Table on Netflix, which is one of those chef competitions.
Yeah.
And it was one of the deal was each episode they had a different challenge from a different country. And the Brazil challenge was a dish called feijoada, which is basically a pork stew. And it looked amazing. So I tried that one. I don't think it was as good as the ones that they made on the show, but for a first try, it was pretty good. And it was one of those that got better every time you reheated it. So I'm excited to make that one again. I need to simmer it a little longer next time.
You say feijoada, I say feijoada. So
that's right.
Feijoada. I want to talk to you a little bit about, because now we seem to know who all the coaches are going to be in college football. Although the way things go in college football, you never know. But we had these 15 Division I hires, and some of them, I don't think there was one where I went, well, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. They all seem to make some sense.
Everything. Well, and think about it, Pat. It was a little lower number this year because I think probably because of the pandemic. And so I think that's part of it. But I do think everything made sense. Even Tennessee, which was a complete mess, the hire made sense. That's, they hired a top tier group of 5 coach in Josh Heupel, which is about what you'd expect them to be able to hire in those circumstances. They've got, potential NCAA sanctions, but it's still an SEC job that pays a ton of money.
Sure.
And if you do it right, you can win there. So I think that made sense. That was probably the weirdest hire of the bunch, just the circumstances of them hiring Danny White as AD first and then him hiring his former coach who, let's be honest, they got there because they'd been turned down by some people. And you're going to swing big at a place like Tennessee, but given the circumstances, it's completely understandable that some people would shy away from that.
It's kind of funny because it reminded me of Florida's hire. They went and hired the AD. He missed on Chip Kelly, ends up bringing the coach in. It was kind of similar.
I think Scott Strickland lucked out there that Chip Kelly wanted no part of that SEC smoke. I actually think Chip's seems to be getting to turning the corner at UCLA. If you watch them in the very abbreviated season they have, I think they are getting to a point where they're getting a little bit better. That would not have played. What happened the first 2 years there would not have played in Gainesville. And given the way they've recruited, it would have only gotten worse. So the situation worked out much better. And I've talked to Scott Strickland about it, and he didn't want to go raid his former school.
Right.
But let's be honest, and Tennessee comes back into this. Dan Mullen was probably leaving Mississippi State one way or the other. I mean, Tennessee was interested in him at the time. They just fired Butch Jones. There were a lot of other big openings that year.
Florida State was interested in him.
Exactly. So the odds that Dan Mullen was going to be Mississippi State's coach the next year were pretty slim. So if you're Scott Strickland at that point, you go, all right, I'm not doing anything that isn't going to happen anyway, so I may as well take him and enjoy the fruits of that.
Yeah, you were talking about how Chip Kelly's first 2 years wouldn't have played in Gainesville. Dan Mullen's first 3 years haven't played that well in Gainesville, even though he's been to 3 New Year's Bowls. All they can see is that Oklahoma game.
Oh, good Lord. This is the part.
Thrown.
This is the part where I worry. I do, because you look at that schedule next year, they're going to have to be really good to win the number of games they've won in the last few years. I mean, Alabama comes on the schedule. They're good. I think LSU's going to be really good next year. But just because they bring so many guys back, I think they've corrected for the bad hires they made last year. It's going to be hard to win the kind of games they've been winning the first few years of the Dan Mullen regime. If they do it, it's a great coaching job. And I worry that people are just going to complain.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do. Nobody suffers winning like Gator fans, as you know.
Well, it's a generational thing, Pat. It's the older ones who never won anything, who went from 1906 to 1984 without an SEC title, they're a little more forgiving. The ones who think football was invented when Steve Spurrier came down from Mount Dora with a stone tablet that said "Thou shalt pitch it around in the swamp," those people, they're hard to please.
And again, I want to talk to you a little bit about Gus Malzahn and UCF, but Brian Harsin in Auburn is an interesting hire. We think he's a pretty good coach. It's going to be, and he's got good players. Let's face it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it wasn't like Malzahn's team was terrible. He got overtaken by a booster coup.
Well, and here's the thing about Auburn that you have to understand: everything you're judged by how you play against your rivals. It's just like Florida. I mean, let's be honest. The Jim McElwain thing, people had it figured out because of what he couldn't do against Florida State. Mm-hmm. So Auburn's the same thing. You're judged by how good you are against your rivals. Unfortunately, their rivals are the two most talented teams in America. Alabama and Georgia, from a pure recruiting talent standpoint, the two most talented teams. And then Alabama's probably also the best coached. So that's a lot to deal with if you're coaching a team with very high expectations already. I have, and I don't know if it's just that I'm getting old and I appreciate things like this.
I've gained so much respect for Nick Saban in the last 3 or 4 years as a coach, because it's, first of all, people can talk about all the recruiters he has. He's the recruiter. And
Right.
Talking to Charlie Strong about that, he got to experience it firsthand last year, and he goes, he's the guy. He's the guy that recruits these guys. And then they leaked that video of him in a Zoom call and how he was recruiting a kid, and I'm like, I would go play for you right now. Let's go. I got 2 artificial knees. Let's tee it up. I mean, he is amazing.
That's what I find interesting. Did you see the documentary with him and Belichick?
Yeah.
I don't think Belichick could do what Saban has done in college, because I'm not sure Belichick could be the recruiter Saban is. Saban, people think, oh, he, socially awkward. He's not socially awkward when he's talking to football people.
Right.
He just doesn't want to talk to us. And that's okay. I'm all right with that.
Mad at us.
Yeah, and Pat, you've got an adult child now, and so you've seen going through college age. Think about making is the wrong word. Think about getting 100 college age people to perform consistently week after week after week for years at a time. It's almost impossible, and he does it. Right, and he has 100 of them.
Yeah, that to me is the most amazing part of his, and I would call it a dynasty. I mean, I don't think there's people want to say, well, Clemson beat him or whatever.
No, it's a dynasty.
But it's a dynasty, yeah. But the way he's able to, everybody comes in and gives you their absolute best shot, and yet you win 90% of your games. It's stunning.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so the rest of the SEC, the other 13 SEC coaches, now that Gus Malzahn's out of the league, 1 combined win against Nick Saban. 1. Ed Orgeron in 2019. It's insane.
He had to have an uber team to do that.
Maybe the best team in the history of the sport to do it.
Exactly.
And it was close. There was an onside kick at the end of the game.
I know. Well, that's the amazing thing to me is that Florida really. I mean, I was sitting there watching the game at the very end. I go, "Where's my Lindsey Scott?" But that was where they were. If they get a Lindsey Scott, they win the game and beat Alabama. So give them credit for that. Your thoughts on Malzahn and what he'll do at UCF? And people always ask me when a big name head coach comes into the state, how's this going to affect Florida recruiting? Well, Florida's recruiting is going to be based on how Florida recruits, not on how UCF recruits or FIU.
Yeah, I don't think
FAU.
it's going to affect. Yeah, it's not going to affect Florida State, or Miami recruiting.
Right.
It's really going to be a matter of how good is Gus at evaluating the people that those 3 aren't recruiting. How good is he at evaluating the ones those 3 don't want? Can he keep those that group of players from going up to Minnesota or going up to Wisconsin or going up to Purdue? That's the thing you got to do if you're Gus. And I think you can. I honestly do, because I think the way UCF has built that program, the way they treat football there, you can stay there rather than go up to the Big Ten or out to the Big 12 or out to the Pac-12 and be happy and be fulfilled and make it to the NFL and win a bunch of games. I think it's a case where you can get those guys. And if you can get those guys and you evaluate them properly, you can win that league every year. I mean, it's not a given. It's not easy, because Luke Fickell's in that league, and he is a fantastic coach, and he recruits and evaluates very, very well. Kendi Matalolo's in that league. You're dealing with that changeup of
Sure.
Navy. You're dealing with very different offenses. Tulsa runs the old Baylor offense. You've got Daniel Holgerson running a kind of run-based air raid. There's a lot to deal with in that league, but it's a lot easier than having to play Alabama and Georgia in the same month.
Yeah, it's never easy. Let's go around the country in terms of the Power 5 conferences and start with the Pac-12. Pac-12. I always want to say Pac-10, and I have to catch myself Pac-12 because I'm an old man, and I remember when they only had.
You don't call them the Pac-8? You recognize Arizona State and Arizona being there?
Yeah, Pac-8. Those were really the old days. But it feels like the Pac-12 has now cleansed itself, and they're ready to move forward. It's not going to be an easy thing for them to all of a sudden become relevant, because you still got to have good teams.
Yeah, so they're changing commissioners. That doesn't change the fact that you got to play better football. Although I do think Oregon is building a roster that can compete with anybody in the country. I think Mario Cristobal understands what a national title contender looks like. He's building toward that at Oregon. I don't know if they're there yet, but I'm very curious to see, if hopefully there's non-conference games this year. I think the seasons will get played as scheduled, which would be great. And we'll get to see Oregon against Ohio State. And so we'll get to see Oregon against a national title contender roster. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how it stacks up. And I think that's good. I think USC, from a player standpoint, they've got talent. They're not there with the Alabamas and the Ohio States and the Georgias and the Clemsons and the Oklahomas yet. But they do have some special talent on that roster. So it is potentially going to get there. But a lot of it is like with the TV deal and the commissioner and everything. A lot of that's outside the commissioner's control. Like, you're not going to suddenly make Cal fans care deeply about football. They're just not.
Right.
But if you're Oregon, if you're Washington, if you're USC, and you do care deeply about football, there's not anything stopping you from being good other than yourself. You should still be able to get the best players on that side of the country, keep them from going all the way to Clemson or all the way to Alabama. Like, you shouldn't be losing to those schools. Texas just grabbed a commit from an LA quarterback, and the reason they had to do that is because Ohio State took the best Texas quarterback for the class of 2022, who was originally committed to Texas. But that's the thing. You've got to patrol your borders a little better, that sort of thing. But all you've got to do is show that you can be a contender. I mean, listen, USC was not considered a destination until Pete Carroll got there and made it one. Oregon wasn't a destination until Chip Kelly made it one. So Mario Cristobal could make Oregon a destination again very quickly, not easily, but quickly, if they do what they should be able to do with the roster they've assembled.
It's really, when you think about it, the most competitive Power 5 conference. Like, you don't know who's going to win that conference. I pretty much know who's going to win the other four.
Yeah, it's the one where the worst team can actually play with the best team. And there's no other Power 5 conference. Like, I'd say the Big 12 is close, because I would argue that there are 9 teams that are pretty – like, the 9th team can give Oklahoma a game.
Right.
Kansas can't, but the 9th team can. And there's more chum, I think, in the ACC and the SEC and the Big 10 at the bottom. The Pac-12, now you can argue that the top is just not far enough up. But I actually think the teams at the bottom of the Pac-12 are not bad. Arizona's got some work to do. But, you look at the Pac-12 South, and I thought Colorado played well at times this past year. Arizona State, I think, can be good under Herm Edwards. Utah's been good, under Kyle Whittingham. So it is one of those leagues where that's why we love Pac-12 After Dark. Those games are fun because they're fairly evenly matched.
Yeah. And next thing you know, they're playing games at 9 a.m. So we like that Pac-12 After Dark.
I was going to say, I can deal with a noon Pac-12 start here in the home front.
Yeah. Media boys love 9 o'clock starts. All right, last thing for you before I let you go. We've seen these early starts to spring football. Florida is going to have its first day in pads, I think, today. Michigan starts, I think, today. Do you think this is to say, look, we want to get our spring in. If we have a COVID situation where we lose our linebacker room, we'll shut it down for a week and come back, or 2 weeks, and come back, and it gives you more leeway to still get your full spring in.
Oh, absolutely. I think everybody's spooked from last year, and think about how tough it was for a lot of these schools that had no spring practice at all. Florida was one of those schools. Yeah. Now, they were lucky because they had a pretty veteran team, but a lot of programs were not that lucky and really needed that time and didn't get it. So I don't blame any of these coaches for giving themselves as much runway as possible to get this in.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll see the return of actual defenses now that we're having a spring.
Pat, you don't want defense. You know, listen, I sat through 9-6 in overtime in Tuscaloosa, and I pretended it was a beautiful SEC defensive slugfest. But let's be honest, that was boring as hell. You know what was exciting? Patrick Mahomes against Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Never not scoring.
You weren't that was it Virginia Tech Wake Forest that were 0-0 and went to overtime?
I was not at that game. I was watching it on TV. I saw Frank Beamer pull one of those at 0-0 going into overtime.
Oh my God, that was great. Hey, Andy, it's always great talking to you. Let the people know what you have in store for them on The Athletic. Of course, I'm a subscriber, and everybody should be as well.
Well, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up on The Athletic. I got some pre-draft stuff. I'm hoping. I'm not sure if it's going to be this week or next week, but a story on an offensive lineman out of Wisconsin Whitewater who could be a very high draft pick, and not a lot of folks know about this guy, but he is a lot of fun. So Quinn Miners, just remember that name, and you can listen to the Andy Staples Show. We got got a big guest on Wednesday, Indiana coach Tom Allen. We had Mario Cristobal last week. We had Shane Beamer, the new coach of South Carolina, a couple weeks ago. All that stuff is archived, so you can get it anywhere you find podcasts. You can also get it on YouTube. So, by all means, download and hit the subscribe button.
You're almost as busy as this retired guy here. I don't know how that.
Nah, I'm not going to catch you. That's never happening.
Andy, thanks, buddy. It's great talking to you, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Pat.
All right, so we got to get our Adams Rib Gators of the Week in here, or actually Gators of the Weekend in here before we go to our break. And it was I was having a hard time deciding on who to put in there. I ended up going with two guys who kind of made history this week. And one of them I almost balked at, and that was Jacob Young. Jacob Young has a 3-year hitting streak going. I've never heard of that ever in the history of man. I don't think Robin Ventura's covered 3 years, but he got a hit in the last game of the regional 2 years ago. He got a hit in all 17 games that Florida played before they got shut down, and he's got a hit in every game this season. Now, I almost didn't pick him because the Gators obviously losing 2 out of 3 was kind of a downer. But I did. I put him in there, and the other one is Noah Locke. Noah Locke going over the 200 three-pointers made. He's not going to catch number one, who's Kenny Boynton. I think Kenny's got 333 or something, 338. I don't think I wrote that down, but I do have it in my back nine column if you want to go on WRUF.com and read that. And also you'll be able to find it here on the Another Dooley Noted Podcast.com website as well. So Noah Locke, congratulations, man. The guy has knocked down a bunch of threes for Florida, he's now at 201 threes. That's pretty amazing. But, who would be the one guy you would have shoot a three if your life was on the line? Lee Humphrey, no question. We're going to get Lee on the show pretty soon. All right, that's going to do it for the opening segment here. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with my friend Tom Hart from ESPN and the SEC Network. Look forward to him. Also, we still have 3 things. We still have our Leonardo's Millhopper quick picks. I got creative again. That's what I do. And so much more here on Another Dooley Noted Podcast. You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City, and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
This is Pat Dooley, and I want to tell you about my friends at the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I'm a member, and you should be too. It's the oldest Gator booster club in the world and a great place to meet new friends, network with prominent business people, and hear a great collection of speakers, including Dan Mullen, throughout the football season. Go ahead and give John Stevens a call at 352-222-8516 or sign up on the website, quarterbackclub.org. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to another Dooley Noted Podcast. It's my great pleasure to bring on Tom Hart. You see him or hear him all the time on ESPN and SEC Network. One of the best in the business as far as I'm concerned, but I only say that because he's on our show right now. Tom, how are you? I know you've been, have you been to a game or are you doing all these games from home?
I've been to a handful of games. I was in Baton Rouge about 3 weeks ago for the SEC Big 12 Challenge when they lost at the buzzer to Texas Tech. Been to Kentucky once, been to Georgia once. It's weird that I can count on one hand how many games I've been to. Been to A&M once. But yeah, doing 2, sometimes 3 games a week from the comfort of my basement keeps the TSA people from getting their hands on me. So that's a good thing.
You can keep the dogs out of there and everything, so you don't have to, anybody running in yelling at you?
I always have people yelling at me, but they're usually on the other side of the controls. That's the producer's job to yell at me. We've been safe. I don't know if I told you this story. I had a football game, Kentucky and Mississippi State this past season where my power went out while I was on the air. And
I remember that, yeah. Did the power go out again?
Went on, and we cleaned some wire cutters. He pulled his MacGyver. He literally snipped it, so it stopped making noise. Bad news is I missed 15 minutes of the game. Good news is it was a terrible game. I missed 3 punts and 1 interception.
That's beautiful. Well done. Well, you were not here, but you got to see Florida Miami, and it probably pained you a little bit that you weren't able to be here for the opening of this wonderful new stadium. I went out there Sunday for the game. It's as advertised. I can tell you, it's unbelievable.
It looks great. I'm a fan of the orientation of the ballpark. I'm glad.
Oh, we lost you again. Must be a bad connection here.
180 degree, whatever they did. Yeah.
There he goes.
Let me hop downstairs. It'll be better down here, I promise.
That's good. That's okay. Well, we'll get Tom in a better spot here, which is part of the thing about doing a live broadcast. And he knows it since he lost 15 minutes of a game. There you go. Oh, it's still kind of cutting out. Looks like a Gator shirt back there.
There is that's a Smoky shirt. We got this.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah.
I like the one that they wore on Sunday with the Florida script on it. That was pretty cool.
And that looks smooth. I like that. I'm a fan of that one.
What? So you got who are the helmets?
Let's see. I've got a little bit of from Missouri here. don't expect anybody to recognize this one.
No.
With 3, Quincy College, where I started my career. We got Auburn and LSU, and we've got an assortment of hats this weekend. Nice enough to spiffy.
Well,
this is my favorite, though. This is my own. We got your Vipers XFL football.
Yeah. That didn't last very long. Is that going to come back?
The Riot is next spring. They haven't announced it. I think they're trying to find the right television.
Deal.
So I don't know. Probably 50-50 chance they get back up and running.
Yeah. Well, instead we have spring football where Deion Sanders gets robbed, which is still an unbelievable story.
Yeah, I made a call today. I'm just so curious about that story, what happened, because I feel like we're not getting the real story. And maybe if he wins there, or if he bails after one spring, there'll be a 30 for 30 on Coach Prime, because I'd watch it, man. I want to figure.
Absolutely, I'll watch it too. Tom, we're kind of going in and out, so we're going to cut it loose right now. I don't know, for some reason the connection's not holding up, and I have a lot of questions for you. I'll ask you one more and see how it holds up.
Maybe that would work better. You want me to try that real quick?
Sure.
We can
Sure.
maybe knock that out, and then I have to be interrupted. I'll call you right back.
Okay. All right, we'll get him right back. Yeah, that was kind of going in and out. That's the first time that's happened. Carlos was a problem, right? Because Carlos Alvarez lives kind of out in the boondocks of Tallahassee. Zach's connection wasn't good. But other than that, we've been lucky. We've had great connections. And I know that when we started doing this podcast, Evan told me poop happens when you're doing live radio. All right, we got Tom back. All right, so let's talk about SEC basketball, okay? I know that who knows what's going to happen with the tournament. None of us know for sure. But what do you think about the league this year? I mean, obviously Alabama's kind of carried the banner. Did well. The SEC did well in the Big 12 Challenge. But I watch SEC basketball. I'm not overly impressed with anybody other than maybe Alabama. And then now all of a sudden, here comes Kentucky. And they've got to win the tournament to get in, but they look really good the last 2 games.
They've had a couple spurts. They looked well when conference play started, and there was the thought that, hey, maybe they've put it together. That was fool's gold. They're definitely playing better, and it's no surprise that a John Calipari coach team with brand new players would be playing better at the end of the year than they were at the beginning. They just dug themselves so large a hole that, as you said, they got to win the whole thing. The tournament, I think, is going to be really interesting, and we can circle back to that. Alabama's had a fantastic year. They were hit with a wake-up call against Vandy this weekend, but they've been injured. They're missing guys. Herbert Jones has been back to 100%. I think he only had 8 points before fouling out. When they're healthy, and they should be healthy by the time they show up in Indianapolis, let alone Nashville, I think they're a legitimate 2 seed. I mean, I think they can beat anybody because they play defense. And no one talks about their defense, and that's fine because their offense can be so overwhelming. But he got those guys to play defense, and I think that's fascinating. It's a fascinating study in coaching. Arkansas's won 7 conference games in a row. They lost their Oklahoma State game in the challenge. He's done a remarkable job of putting together a bunch of new faces and getting them to play well. and they've got a lot of different weapons. And so I've really been impressed with the way they played. Everyone's talking about nationally, Isle Dosunmu from Illinois and Luka Garza as being players of the year, running away with it. Cam Thomas is right behind Garza in points per game. Nobody in the country goes to the free throw line more than he does. Nobody makes more free throws than he does. He's part of like a three-headed monster for LSU that, is highly entertaining. I wonder if, and Will Wade brought this up the other day, and I mentioned this before, like no one in the history of the SEC has ever said, man, I wish John Calipari were doing better. Like
that includes me.
No coach has ever uttered that. But Will Wade said that, and he said, I wonder if we would think of this league differently, if outsiders would, if that were Kentucky instead of Alabama in their position. And I think there's something to it, and I think that changes the perception of the league as a whole. There's no doubt in my mind.
See, here's the thing. I wrote about this in the column I did I write for the WRUF website. But here's the thing. When you look at Kentucky's record, what are they, 8-13 now, I believe? So even if they won out, they'll get that game at the end of the season that'll be added on. We still don't know who's going to be playing then. So they could get to 11-13, win 3, or win 2 even, and finish 500. No other team would be considered. But if you're Kentucky, or you're Duke, or you're Michigan State, or North Carolina, these are all teams fighting on the bubble. You never know, because I think Kentucky might be the second best team in the conference, maybe the best team, the way they're playing.
It's a fascinating point. I think that from a resume perspective, those losses that they had in the non-conference are debilitating.
Yeah.
Richmond, which I thought could have had a great year and perhaps could have, played for their conference title. Notre Dame has been abysmal. Their resume at the end, they could have some impressive wins, but if you stack them head to head with other teams because of those losses, I think they have to win the whole thing to get in. That being said, I wasn't at the SEC tournament in 2008. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I was actually working the Mountain West tournament in Las Vegas when Adam Zucker came on it for a news update to show, footage of the swinging girders at the Georgia Dome after the tornado had come through. Yeah, with my wife and my infant child living just like 5 miles away from the tornado. So you were there. My family was there. I wasn't there. I was close. I was hundreds of miles away. I bring that up because I think that given how that tournament took everybody out of their routine and obviously took the crowd out of the tournament, it allowed the worst team in the league. Georgia had lost 11 out of 13 even going into the tournament. It gave them a window to do something that was unforeseen. It'll be a question of motivation because I don't know what South Carolina and Texas A&M, I don't know what their motivation is going to be when they get to Nashville. But a team like Vanderbilt with Pippen and Dissou, for example, and South Carolina's got great scores too. I think we could see something similar. I think we could see routine thrown up in the air and motivation thrown up in the air. If you're already in, you might be looking to Indianapolis and say, let's just get there and get there safely. I think anything's possible. I really do. A&M to me is the wild card right now because they haven't played.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to play again. Do you?
I
7
don't know.
straight.
7 straight. They're supposed to play Missouri on Saturday. Who knows if that one's going to happen? But outside of A&M, and that the indecision on even if they're going to be there, the only team that can't win the SEC tournament is Auburn because they're not going. But I really do think that anybody could win the thing. Yeah.
It's a shame I don't have Bruce Pearl there. Well, the funny thing is, when you start talking about not being at the SEC tournament, I thought you were going to go to last year, which is I was there. I saw one basketball game. Then I was fearing for my life getting on an airplane that I was going to inhale this terrible virus on a plane. It was the weirdest. It was weirder than the tornado tournament.
I believe it. I believe it. I was in Nashville last year. We got 2 games in. I was doing a radio show the next day because I had the night games. I got a text while I was at the radio show saying, pack your bags, get home, the thing's over. And I sprinted back to my hotel and I raced to the airport. And have you ever done this before where you're not sure if you're going to make a flight? So you take your rental car keys and you say, hey, I might be right back.
I've never done that. That's interesting.
You go to the desk and say, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, you can have the car, but I might be right back. I mean, I didn't know if the plane was going to take off, right? Let alone if I was going to be safe. But yeah, I got on the first thing smoking out of Nashville and flew home. And then, like all of us, I sat on my tush for 3 months saying, what am I going to do now?
Well, before I let you go, we appreciate your time as always, Tom. You've seen Florida play. I mean, they're a weird team sometimes. They 36 turnovers in our last 2 games, but they won one of them and had a chance to win the other. They're kind of a strange team in that they never lack effort. They just seem to lack poise at times.
I think that is that's more common in college basketball this year than ever before. Poise comes and goes with the wind. I made this comment the other day. You know, I've subscribed to enough analytics sites. I'm surprised. I don't know how to dig this up, but I believe that I've seen more 10-0, 12-0, 14-4, 16-0 runs in college basketball this year than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, I agree.
Because teams don't know each other, coaches don't know their teams, or identities haven't. You know, we're almost to March and identities still haven't been forged, or they just recently were. And you know, Tom Crean talks about it, and he said, I don't think our guys understand how long a game is, which is the strangest thing I've heard a college coach say, but it makes sense if you consider that his point is they don't understand that when they're trailing, there's enough time to still win this thing, or when they're ahead, hey, there's enough time you can still blow this thing. And that's because a lot of teams lack the poise that they normally would have at this time of year. So I don't think Florida's alone in that.
Yeah, the strangest thing I ever heard a coach say was Billy Donovan early in his career telling us that there were players on his team that didn't know that everybody didn't get into the NCAA tournament. And they were like, what, we got to win how many games? What? I thought we all got in. Well, I thought we all got to play. And we're like, he's just shaking his head. Of course, that team went to a Sweet 16, so that was pretty cool. But hey, Tommy, we appreciate your time, man, and good luck. I mean, I think I've said this to a lot of people that are people I consider friends. I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, I would love that. I'd hope to be in the same building soon, and it'd be even better if there were, I don't know, 15, 18,000 of our friends with us. That'd be great. And
then we can go to the bar afterwards. We'll wear masks.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Tom, thanks a lot, buddy.
All right. Sorry about the technology. Thanks for having me.
Don't worry, bud. We'll see you. All right. We have got to get a break in here, and then when we come back, we will do the 3 things and the Leonardo's Millhopper quick picks. We're coming back. We're starting another contest. Who knows when it'll end? Probably after March Madness, but we'll start it. And we've got 4 things for you to pick. We'll put it on Facebook as well as on Twitter, so you can get in there. And so we'll take a break, and we'll be right back with more of Another Dooley Noted Podcast.
Titan MRI, North Central Florida's premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. At Titan MRI, we're focused on you, the patient, having a great customer experience. Our MRI equipment is modern and 75% quieter than any unit in its class. And our MRI unit has one of the largest openings of any of the newer high-strength MRI units, which allows comfortable scanning for potential claustrophobic and larger patients. At Titan MRI, we look forward to serving you.
You can get your favorite alcoholic brands from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits delivered right to your door. ABC Delivers is available in Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, and all of the Southeast Florida. Earn ABC points for coupons and free bottles through abcdelivers.com. It's powered by FedEx Same Day City and you're going to love the price. Free with a $50 purchase for the first 7 miles. So wine, spirits, beer, and everything you need to celebrate. Get it delivered. Shop abcdelivers.com. Thanks so much to our title sponsors, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and Titan MRI, and to our pick sponsor, Leonardo's of Millhopper. You can find us live on Facebook and YouTube, or listen at your leisure on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or wherever you find all your favorite podcasts. I'm excited to continue this podcast and to have your company on board as a sponsor. If you're interested in being part of the show, email me at patrickdooley54@gmail.com or give me a call, 352-317-3444. All right, welcome back to Another Dooley Noted Podcast. We apologize for the technology, and Tom is such a great guy, and it was great of him to make the effort to get so we could hear what he had to say. He's really one of my favorite people out there. We are going to hopefully have Tico Brown on the Friday show, and I think Robbie Andrew also will be on. We're still, the commissioner is real busy, and I understand that, and we're trying to give him opportunities where we can tape and all that. Hopefully we'll get him on. We've got another few guys lined up. I think we're going to get Jimmy DeBose on very soon. If you don't know who Jimmy DeBose is, I'll give you a lesson in Jimmy DeBose, okay? SEC Player of the Year in 1975. That should be enough of a lesson for you. And one of my, really, I talked about Carlos Alvarez being one of my heroes when I was growing up. When I was in college, Jimmy DeBose was my hero. I love Jimmy DeBose. So we're going to try to hook him up, and I think we're going to have a bunch of other Gators. We're going to keep trying to get you Gators, and also media guys. That's the plan for this show, and if you don't like it, let me know. If you like it, let me know. All right, 3 things, or just let me know. You know how to get a hold of me. It's not hard. And if you want to get in on Facebook Live, you can ask a question as well. I think Robbie Andrew will be on Friday as well, sponsored by Lauren Cartwright. Dr. Lauren Cartwright, Ocala Family Dentistry. We always like her. And again, you can listen to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Overcast. It is a little overcast out there right now. So Podbean, any of the 39 platforms. And if you like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and you make me happy. And we're trying to figure out another thing. My friend Chris Connor has brought up something I want to talk to Evan about after the show. Okay. 3 things. All right, 3 things today is sponsored by the Gainesville Quarterback Club. I think they're having a meeting this next month, so I'm fired up about that. And then, like I've said on the commercials, I'm a member. You need to be a member. It's a great lineup of guests, speakers that they have. In fact, they had Fred Ridley on at the end of last year, the chairman of Augusta National. That's big time. I can't get Fred Ridley. They got him. I can't get him. All right, so it's time for 3 things. Number 1, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, the resurgence of the Blue Bloods, and it's been kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of us that like to see car accidents. And when I say that, I'm saying it like we want to see the U.S. Open in golf when guys have wrecks. We want to see guys fall off the cliff, in terms of their careers. And I'm not saying that makes us bad people, but it's an interesting story. It's intriguing. And it's been really intriguing this year to see these great teams, great programs, great Blue Bloods fall off. Well, all of a sudden you saw a little resurgence, and Saturday was a big day for them. And that includes Kentucky. I do have this question for you, okay? And it's Kentucky, it's Duke. I think right now North Carolina be in. Michigan State really has got a long way to go. They had a big win Saturday. Duke, I think Duke is going to slide in, and we don't know. Like, I believe the committee is going to look at teams that are well known and give them a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a break. They want a tournament that has Duke in it. They want a tournament that has Kentucky in it. To be honest, they don't. They'd rather have Kentucky in the tournament than Valpo or anybody. Now, you want the upsets. That's part of it. But we'll see what happens with that. I have this question I'm going to ask today on the tailgate with Jeff Cardozo and myself. And I'm curious what your answer is. Maybe we should have made this one of the Leonardo's Millhopper quick picks. But if Alabama and Florida State are playing for the national title in basketball at the end of this, and that could happen. I mean, they're both good enough. FSU's really come on. Alabama's really good. FSU has its lulls. But if that happened and those two teams were playing, who would you root for? And the obvious answer is Alabama, right? And you say, Alabama, of course, Alabama. SEC, A, B, can't ever root for FSU. However, there's only one school, history of the world, that has had both the football and basketball titles at the same time. Both those trophies at the same time. That school's the University of Florida. If Alabama wins, they would become the second. You don't want to share it with them. I'm not saying I'd root for FSU in that game, but think about it. Get back to me on it. We'll ask that question. Hopefully we'll get a bunch of calls on it during the show today. All right, that's number one. Number two, make sure tonight, I think it's 9 o'clock, SEC Storied, Once Upon a Comeback. Dara Torrey's great comeback, the only Olympian to medal in 5 different Olympics. It's an incredible story, and she's, of course, a former Gator, and she is the reason James Bates became a broadcaster. That's an interesting story. James Bates asked her, they were in school at the same time, he said, he found out she was in journalism. He goes, what journalism? That's a major? He didn't even know. Yeah, you can do that and you can become a broadcaster eventually. And that's why he became a broadcaster. So there's 2 things she's got going for her. And she's a sweetheart too. All right, and finally, number 3 on 3 things, Tyler McCumber, who of course Mark McCumber's son, played golf at the University of Florida and was really good here. He was in contention at Riviera on the PGA Tour, and I was rooting for him so hard. Unfortunately, he couldn't hold on, but part of the problem was he was closing a sliding door and ripped off half of his fingernail, right? Didn't rip it off, just destroyed it. So they had to get a doctor in, and the doctor numbed it, ripped it off. They wrapped all the stuff around him. He went out and was in second place after 2 rounds. Now, it didn't hold up. He shot 77, 74 at the end, but congrats to Tyler for gutting it out like that. And great guy, great guy. So I'm only dealing with great people today. Although Kentucky, no, that's not great. Nobody likes Kentucky. All right, so that's 3 things today presented by the Gainesville Quarterback Club. It is time now to move on to the start. I know we're running out of time, but the start of our next contest with Leonardo's Quick Picks. Leonardo's Millhopper, going to go by there tomorrow. Going to have a chicken parm. Going to pick up the stuff, the gift certificates for the winner. It was Bob Julian. We're going to get that to him. And some other stuff as well, some hats and shirts, and all kinds of stuff. All right, here they are, real quick, because we're running a little late. Who cares? We can go as long as we want. All right, first of all, first one, Florida at Auburn. Who do you got? I'm not giving you a spread. I'm just saying Florida at Auburn. Auburn struggled. Sometimes they look bad. Sometimes they look pretty good. They've got Sharif Cooper, is one of the best players in the SEC. Who do you got? Florida at Auburn. Now, the second one, which team of those two has the most rebounds in the game? Because this has been a bugaboo at times, and then there are times when Florida does so good on the boards, but you don't know what they're going to do, it feels like, for once game. So Florida or Auburn, who do you think gets the most rebounds? Now, if you pick Florida to win the game, you probably have to pick them to have the most rebounds, but we'll see which ones you get right. The third item is Alabama at Arkansas. I put this on there because I can't wait for that game. I think that's a Wednesday night game. That's going to be a great game. And by the way, the Florida game got moved up. It was supposed to be a 9 o'clock game. Now it's a 7 o'clock game. That's good news for Florida. Not that it's going to give them any kind of an advantage, but I know for those guys, those players, those coaches, you hate 9 o'clock games. But A, you have to sit around longer in the hotel, and B, you get home so late. So that was good news. I'm sure they were happy to see that. But Alabama at Arkansas ought to be a great game. I mean, it really, I like that Arkansas team a lot. You know, Tom was talking about them, and of course, Alabama's pretty much clinched the SEC. And finally, this is a over-under I never thought I'd be doing, but over-under the number of walks for Florida that they allow in their 2 games against UNF. One of them is tomorrow night at UNF. One of them is in Gainesville. You would think the throwing strikes is going to be a priority for Kevin O'Sullivan to get his team to do. But the over-under is, I'm putting it at 6, okay? 6 walks that Florida will give up in 2 games. Now, they gave up 25 in 3 games. So that may be a low number, and you may want to go over, but you got to think it's got to get better. And it's UNF, it's not Miami. I think Miami's good. They surprised me how good they were. Now, Florida gave them those games with all those walks, but 25 walks and 5 hit batsmen. But they're up to number 4, I think, in Baseball America. They're a good team. They're better than I thought they were, to be honest with you. All right, so 20 days till Selection Sunday. That's got me that's got my juices going, and I'm excited about that, and I hope you are too. We appreciate our guests, Andy Staples, Tom Hart, hopefully Tico Brown on Friday. We're trying to set up something there where we may tape it, but who knows? You don't care. You're just going to watch it, right? I think Robbie Andrew may be on as well. You never know. We just like to move around. You never know what we're going to do. I think we covered everything, Evan. I think we've covered everything. Is there anything? The what? Yes, we did Adam's rib. We did it earlier than normal. So, yeah, we're going to move it up to the front there. That was Noah Locke and Jacob Young. So, that's it. We're done. We're done with another show. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and appreciate everybody clicking on, everybody for listening as well. And, again, happy birthday to my brother Tim, 39 years old again. And we'll be 39 platforms, and he's 39, so it's pretty impressive. That's going to do it for another edition of Another Dooley Noted Podcast. Until next time, I'm Pat Dooley. I'm deep, I'm way back, and I am out of here.